Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, Lord, and we just thank you for the opportunity that we have to be here to assemble for the council meeting, Lord. Be with each and every one of the council members here and staff, and bless this meeting. In His name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Brenda. Don't get me off task. No mayor's announcements?
Nothing tonight.
All righty. No public hearings. I'd like to open up to citizen participation. Anybody who has anything you'd like to say about things that are not on the agenda, please stand up and give us your best 2 minutes.
I'll make that 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
This group, is there a middle?
No one out there, so citizen participation is closed. I need a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. On to the financial report. Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor Harder. And good evening, everyone. I have a few brief remarks for Mayor Harder's benefit. Trust everyone got their financial packets. First off, on the unrestricted cash balances, they are steadily growing. We had a little bit of a decrease with respect to the fire sales tax fund and Parks and Recreation. Fire sales tax, July was the month where we paid the $68,000 for the breathing equipment that had been approved by council in May. And then for Parks and Rec, we had a major, our annual principal and interest payments on the 2011 series refunding bonds then, and that's principally affected Parks and Rec's cash balance, so otherwise they would also be in the black. So, but overall, we are looking at very healthy cash balances all the way across. Not much else to speak of with respect to the financials themselves. One thing I do want to bring up for next meeting, that is when we are going to be approving our 2015 property tax levy. I am still awaiting information from the state auditor's office. And then we will have we already have the request for the public hearing published. That will come out in next Wednesday's Monitor for 2 weeks from tonight. We'll have the public hearing, first and second readings, and then go ahead and approve the property tax levy. So we should have that information available well before that. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Yes, Mr. Blankenbeard.
Did you happen to hear anything on our sales tax that's due in? I saw that Springfield announced they were up like 11%, so I know we saw an incredible check last month, and looks like things have held pretty strong. I didn't know if you had already had some numbers and hadn't gotten them out.
Well, we had just gotten some numbers, but obviously they're not as strong as last month. I think we're in the neighborhood of about 130,000, but I was going to wait until the second meeting when we had all our sales tax figures available, and I will present that report at that time, and we can discuss it in depth.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Poole.
Well, I've been contacted several times with people on this no sales tax, thanking us for doing it. So I wanted to pass that along. I told them I'd pass it along. They said several people would say, well, Ozark, so many people didn't do it this year, but they was thanking us for doing it, so passing that along.
Wasn't that the last council meeting? They talked about it at the last council meeting?
I think we just didn't mention the date of it.
Okay.
I think is that the no tax, for the
Yeah,
school?
no tax.
For school, yeah.
Yeah, no tax.
All right. Anything else for Mr. O'Donnell? Nothing else? I need a motion and a second for approval of the financial report.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Reports from staff, Mr. Krischke.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing. Mr. Derrickson?
I'm gonna keep quiet.
You're good, okay. Future community events, Mr. Keeley.
Thank you, sir. Short those are, he needs to get out of here tonight.
I don't know what's going on here, but it was short, so. But I do have a couple to add, though. But first of all, I do want to give a brief report on the Public Youth Tigger Try and the Republic Tiger Try. Our numbers were really good this year. We had a total of 431 participants across the two events, 325 on Saturday. Special thanks to all the city departments, really, who helped out with the event. Turned out really, really good. We got in just before the thunderstorm, so it turned out really good. And appreciate citizens of Republic putting up with the road closures as well. I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but it turned out safe and good, and that's what's most important. So.
Is that an increase from last year?
The adult is a significant increase. We had topped out around 2008, 2009, around 375. We had dipped all the way down to about 230 last year in the adult, and we had 325 this year. So that was a good number. We were happy to see that. So that is a direct result probably of a lot of our regional competition that has just went by the boards. They're no longer offering it. We've held pretty strong and true, and the next year will actually be our 10th annual event. So
Okay,
good
very
stuff.
good.
August 21st is the last day to register for our Fall Youth Co-ed Soccer Program. That's for any children in the area ages 4 to 12. The games begin on September the 8th. August 21st is the last day to register for Youth Flag Football. That's for boys and girls in grades 1st through 4th. The season begins on September the 7th. August 12th through September 16th is Senior Week Bowling. We have multiple time slots available that are held on Wednesdays. Just call the Republic Community Center for more details. And every Monday that Republic schools are in session, we offer Toddler Open Gym beginning on August the 17th. We held that out of the Activities Building. A couple of other events that weren't on your agenda. August the 22nd is our next event at the AMP. It's Guardians of the Galaxy beginning at 8 p.m. And one final one, August the 29th, is our first annual Got Mud Run. Happy to report registration for that is really phenomenal. We have 117 registered so far. That's from 21 cities across southwest Missouri. They're coming for that event. So that'll be really good. That's at a Brookline Park. It'll be good stuff. So
Good deal.
thank you.
How are the pools doing? Rain?
A little rain.
Little rain?
Little rain. I'll have actually firm numbers after we close up on Labor Day. But we were ahead of last year, but we've had a lot of rain last. You know, I'll get the firm numbers when it closes.
Okay, thank you very much. On the Board Commissions and Committee schedule, Board of Adjustments, September 3rd. Capital Improvements Committee, August 26th. City Council, August 24th and September 14th. Planning and Zoning, August 17th. On the old business, Bill number 1517 has been tabled to September 14th. So I need a motion and a second for the motion and a second for the reading of Bill number 15-18.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Brenda, please.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to execute an STP urban program agreement with the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission for street improvements to East Hines and North Oakwood.
Any motion and a second for final approval of Bill number 15-18.
Motion.
Second.
Overview, Mr. David.
Thank you, sir. This is the second reading of a program agreement with MoDOT that would provide access to just over $1.9 million in federal highway funds. And those money would be used towards a capacity improvements to East Hines and Oakwood. Now, in addition to the federal highway funds, we were expecting to spend about $473 in local dollars, and we have on hand a $75,000 contribution from a developer within that corridor. This would be a project that develops overnight. Our first step would be a detailed scoping study. We do have a budget that was prepared by transportation engineers, but it was prepared from a 30,000-foot level. Our next step to get a good understanding of what we can afford to build and to allow council to participate in the development of the project is a scoping study where we'll get a more detailed cost estimate, more precise analysis of right-of-way that might be necessary to be acquired, and very detailed definition of what we can afford to build. Council approves this tonight, we'll spend about another 30 days getting MoDOT's side to sign off, and then we would begin the engineering selection process probably sometime in the second half of September.
Very good, David, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brock? Yes, Mr. Klinkenbeard.
This study, I know last time we talked about that there wasn't funds in it to actually do the work on Far East Hines from like Oakwood all the way out to ZZ. However, are the funds in this study, or does this study include like engineering and a cost estimate for doing that portion of the work still, or are they not even studying that end of it?
No, I think we can incorporate that into our scoping study.
Okay.
And this is the same process we did to get us to this point. We're working on our estimates for our resources, we're working on our estimates for expenses, and from our initial standpoint, with essentially a $500,000 contribution from the city, we had to limit our project limits to Hines Street to intersection Oakwood and then Oakwood North. We may come up with something different. When we go back to a more detailed study, we may find a funding mechanism on the city side that we could add more funds to this project.
Sure.
The only thing that is really set in stone at this time would be the STP funds that are available. This is our balance to date plus 3 years out into the future, and then our $75,000 from the developer.
Obviously, as I've made clear before, I like to stress that that Hines corridor from Oakwood to ZZ is a strong necessity, and the sides of the road are deteriorating in a lot of areas, are pretty rough, and I know we had discussed that some of that might be due to drainage, but I was hoping at least a study would go into it, because even if you couldn't afford, I think you should do it right the first time. So if we can't afford to put the street all the way out there or widen it and put sidewalks like we'd like to be able to have kids go from either the park end or out to the high school the other way going to school, then we maybe could at least get the utilities moved, even if that were to purchase, some property along there a little bit for widening easements and or improving the storm drainage, because you'd have to do that for a road later too. So there may be pieces of it, so encouraging if at least the study was done on that end, even if we couldn't afford to do the final project right away.
I understand. If we can't do the whole thing, let's find some incremental steps that we can take.
Sure, because if we're talking doing the studies in 16 and building the Oakwood part and part of the intersection there in 17, we're already talking, if you can't find funds, out to at least 18. You don't want to have to redo the study or not be able to do any incrementals. That's a long time for that road to survive. I don't see it happening without quite a bit of repair, at least on the roadbed on the sides. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klinkenbeard. Any other questions for Mr. Brock? Any discussion? Okay, I need a motion and a second for final, no? Roll call vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Cole?
There, please.
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashears?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Klinkenbeard?
Aye.
Thank you. Any motion and a second to read for the second reading of Bill number 15-19?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Chapter 415, Sign Regulations, Section 415.080, provisions for signs in business areas relating to off-premise signs.
Thank you, Brenda. Any motion and a second for final approval of Bill number 15-19?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Tyson.
Thank you. Bill 15-19 will allow for off-premise signs, which are those signs that advertise for a product or service that is not being sold or offered at the same location as the sign. This bill will allow for those signs to be taller from a maximum now of 25 feet up to 40 feet. It will allow them to be larger, increase from 325 square feet to 400 square feet allowable area, and it will also increase the minimum setback from, I believe it's 10 feet to 25 feet. I've also included, at the last council meeting, there was some discussions and questions about potentially how many of these off-street, off-premise signs could we have here in the city. Once you put an off-premise sign in, it has to be located on a C2, C3, M1, or M2 zone. And then once you install one, that creates a 1,500 feet buffer from that sign where there can be no other off-premise signs located. So what I've done is I've provided a map that should have been included in your package tonight that shows the location of existing off-premise signs along with that 1,500 feet buffer, and then some potential locations for new off-premise signs located along U.S. Highway 60, James River Freeway, and a small portion of Interstate 44. So where you see the yellow stars and the yellow buffering, those are potential sites for new off-premise signs. Now, this bill would not change that potential. That potential would remain the same, but what would change is at those locations, if somebody were to put in an off-premise sign, it could be taller, larger, and the setback would increase from the property line.
That is in your red folder, so if you get a chance to look at those. If anybody had any questions on these from last week, so here's your opportunity to look at the map that Mr. Tyson put in there. Yes, Mr. Klinkenberg.
How does the city benefit from another sign going up? How does that benefit us? And do we want more signs up is what I'm getting at. And I know you put in there that this does not change the quantity. However, if you limit the height and you limit the size, then it may deter people that are going with the newer digital ones that have to be a bigger size, or if you can't see them because they're too short and you can't see them from the road, there's no reason to put one in. So, to me, there is, by increasing this, it's obviously going to make it more of a potential that somebody's going to want to do it. It's advantageous. So my question is, do we want more? And why, what is the benefit? Am I missing anything? Why do we want more billboards?
I see what you're saying. Despite that the potential remains the same, you're saying this makes it more desirable, therefore more people are likely to
There's
jump
a
on
higher
those yellow
likelihood
stars. Right.
that someone will put one in. Let's say that the people putting them in are looking around for places where they can put in the new digital ones and they're X wide by X high or whatever. And then they, also some of our positions around the city, you may have to have them so high to be able to be visible from the highway if they've built the highway up, off the ground or whatever, or there's tree line or something. So if we keep them low and there's no point in putting one where no one can see it from the roadway, or it doesn't fit any of the current standardized electronic signs that they're doing now for billboards, then that would deter a bunch of people from putting them in.
Right.
To me, there's always been a push to limit the number. I can see on maybe 44 and on James River, but, interior to the city or anywhere where there might be houses within ranges of those or other opportunities, people don't want billboards or outdoor advertising. Everybody's tried to limit those. And I just see this as opening it up to more people putting bright electronic ones, putting even more giant ones in if you're increasing the size. And so my only thing is who benefits from us increasing this?
Sure.
Other than the sign people.
Yeah, I agree with you. If your goal is to deter, then this probably is not an amendment you'd be favorable to. The intent in preparing this amendment and bringing it forward was not deterrence towards billboards.
Obviously.
So,
sure. And I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate, so I'm trying to see what's the other side. Tell me what the good pieces of that would, or how am I hurting somebody other than the people who want to put up billboards and sell advertising?
Just to speak on behalf of development, first of all, the height of the signs under the current regulations is really more of a deterrent visibly, because you're driving down the highway and you're seeing these signs at a 25-foot distance more eye level, it will raise it to a 40-foot, which is compatible I should say, to the other areas, most areas that have billboard regulations in place. As far as what good does that do for the community, it helps with development-wise. When you're dealing with some national and regional franchises, they want to know that their billboards can be posted at a certain height. So it does hurt retail development when we are putting a deterrent here that says you can't have it at a height that all the other communities that we're competing with can have it at.
How does that hurt retail? Because if I'm say McDonald's putting up something along the highway, I can put my McDonald's sign. I just can't maybe have a billboard a mile down the street that's as high as I want.
I don't know if I could answer the question on behalf of McDonald's.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm just
But I
using
could
them as a
answer on the
generic
side
thing.
of retail.
Sure.
You got to be competitive.
So if I'm a retail, let's say I'm putting in a outlet mall or something along James River there, like James River and someone wants to go down the Little Valley area and put in an outlet mall. They can put all their standard store signs. How would that deter them from coming and putting that outlet mall there if they can't have a billboard as big?
Depends on if demographically that particular retailer is appealing to a tourism factor. And if you're talking about a highway, interstate, any type of major thoroughfare, that higher billboard is a definite complement to what they're trying to do. So you got to realize these national and regional franchises and operations really have a success menu that they know what works. And if they're driving down James River, and again, I shouldn't be speaking to James River because that's not what we're talking about, but
Sure.
if they are looking at other regional areas to land their operation, they're looking at all those components. How can we get our word out? How is it competitive to the other areas? Do we have easy access? Is it compatible and comparable to where we're going to be able to build in Ozark, Nixa, Springfield? And if we're all on the same even playing field, and most of the time we're not, but if we are, that could be the one thing that sways it one way or the other.
A billboard, really. Okay, appreciate that.
Ms. Wilson?
The way I look at the billboard situation is it's advertisement for the businesses, and if it brings in customers, that brings in sales tax for the cities. So
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
I see that they're all going to these electronic displays now because it's easy to maintain. There isn't huge vinyl cost. Every time you have a new advertiser, it's 2 seconds to switch it on a computer screen. And if you move that up to 40 foot in the air, then it's viewable over trees, and you start getting to where people's properties, a house or whatever, can visibly see that. And I don't know, how close are single-family home residences or apartments to some of these zones where someone could put up one of those signs. Because, a 20 foot, a tree line can easily block that. At 40 feet, you start shining that all night long down on someone's property. Like I said, I'm throwing it out there. If you guys have any feedback for me to help out, I'd appreciate it.
Outdoor lighting layer, throwing it out for outdoor lighting layer. That would be something that
Yeah, if it were extremely close to a residence, there might be some lighting restrictions. If it were, like you said, an LED, that would be an extreme case. You hope in the course of rezones and in planning that you have quite a separation between your residential areas and these zones where these are allowed, that being the general commercial and the industrial areas. You hope you've got some sort of buffer in there. Maybe it's a little bit closer to a multifamily, but further away from a single family. Now, our zoning here in Republic's not perfect, so you do have some areas where you have single family residences lying right next to a general commercial zone. So I suppose there is that potential. I don't know how probable you are to have that, but there is that potential.
If you've seen, like, Springfield as an example, there's a couple on Kansas Expressway that are within range of a house. There's some in Glenstone that are right next to an apartment complex. And they're bright at night, especially if the signs, they can make them where they're mainly white instead of black or darker blue on their image, and it really, those things are huge. just don't know, and it's probably other ways to look at that.
I think what everybody said is accurate, and I think your points are valid. It all really comes down to what Gary Wilson said about the competition, and Gail had mentioned it too with the businesses. If you get up and down I-44, you'll see the billboards are mostly national, regional type billboards. When you get inside the city off of Route 60, you look down Glenstone and in Springfield, those electronic billboards generally are advertising your local businesses. So it does bring attention to the businesses that are in your city. The businesses do like the fact that they have that option to be able to advertise that way. So it's a balance between how far do you go in helping your businesses and helping them survive and thrive versus what may be some of the negative impacts. You may have a house or two that would be impacted by a big electronic sign, but probably minimal, but there are going to be some, without a question. There'll absolutely be some houses that can be impacted by it, but the end result is you're going to get more local businesses advertising, and that does attract new businesses. So that's the trade-off.
I guess I'm fine with the sign upgrades, mainly because they can move to the electronic ones as it's written here. Could we maybe look at our sign ordinance and, clean up some of those other things, like that they're going to use LED? I think the state has a law against motion on them because it's dangerous, but if we could just look at covering things like the light on them and things like that are new, because it used to be where the lights shined against the billboard so that the main spot was going away and the sign was lit. Now with the LEDs, it's actually almost a floodlight coming off of it. But if we could maybe look at some of those things for the council on something future, just a general sign.
Does that fall under the, help me out here.
Nuisance, you think?
No, well, maybe nuisance, but, no, the exterior lighting, your forward plan, what was it?
Comprehensive plan?
UDC, is that what you're
Yes, Unified Development Code, does that fall under that?
Well, I think just about everything fell under that.
Okay.
That's what I'm wondering also, is that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
There's room for improvement on all those codes, and we certainly could look at some of those areas,
So,
as we have.
and that's, and that UDC is ongoing, okay.
I think Jim and Gail articulated the benefits to the community very well. I think your concerns, perhaps like you're suggesting, could be addressed in some further modification to this ordinance. I think the Supreme Court, a recent decision by the Supreme Court, I think will probably force us to go do some more work in the sign code anyways. So while we're in there, assuming Gail's on board with that, we go in there and do some of these modifications that you're talking about.
I don't want to be against modernizing or anything, just to use it as a deterrent. So if we can look at those other things, and I know we've developed a lot of changes on those codes, and that Unified Development Code's been talked about for several years, but some of the more important things like this maybe need to be pulled out and run through on their own ahead of time, as I know we're doing here.
Right, and we have had that on a priority list, so we
Thank you.
will certainly address your issues.
I appreciate you working with me on that.
Mrs. Poole, you had a question?
Have we had any requests from business owners to increase the height? I know when in our city, right here in town, we had a problem when Conoco, they wanted, and theirs is taller than anybody else's in Republic. But have any of the business owners that rent these signs complained?
We don't get it from
Have we had requests, are we doing this thinking that it is something that's going to be beneficial?
I think a little bit of the both, to answer your question. We have had businesses in the past that have, they automatically see how tall McDonald's is. McDonald's is way up there, and of course everybody wants their sign way up there too, right? And so those were preceding what our existing regulations are. So it's a little bit of both. Some want, what can we do to get our, especially if they're new in the area. If you've got an AutoZone, if you've got Arby's, if you've got those folks, they know they have to play by the local municipality ordinances when it comes to sign height. All of them do ask, how do we get our sign higher? I say all. A lot of them do ask that. As far as competing elements against, and again, I think Jim had mentioned, regional and national billboards along Highway 60, those are usually going to be on I-44 or James River, which MoDOT does have a say on those particular billboards, obviously. But when it comes to the local establishments, it's usually your sign companies that are making those requests unless it is a national franchise like an Arby's or an AutoZone. They feel like they're going to be more competitive if they can have their billboard signs higher, then go out and lease it to local establishments. And but at the end of the day, it's nice to be competitive with the other companies.
I don't have a problem with increasing the height of it. I just wondered if we were getting requests if somebody was unhappy with the way we were doing it.
We have come over that. I don't have anybody here to tell you right now they're unhappy and they're not going to come because of that. But no, I've run into that quite a few times over the last 9 years. We worked around it. It's just got to the point now where people are kind of expecting us to take a look at it and see what we can do.
Very good. Any other questions for Gail or Garrett? Good discussion, good points brought up. Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Klinkenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Councilmember Brashear,
Aye.
Councilmember Harder,
Aye.
Councilmember Poole,
Aye.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of bill number 15-20.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Chapter 405 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances by repealing Article 12, Board of Adjustment, and enacting a new Article 12 in lieu thereof.
I need a motion and a second for final approval of bill number 15-20.
Motion.
Second.
Welcome back, Mr. Tyson. You never went away, did you?
No, I never did. Thank you. The city's Board of Adjustment is authorized by state statute and also by ordinances of the city to vary the zoning laws of the city, vary decisions that the city council has made about what those zoning laws are going to be. They're allowed to vary those, make adjustments to them. They're also allowed to hear appeals of administrative decisions made by staff concerning the zoning laws, and so they have quite a bit of power and influence over how zoning laws are, in some cases, potentially and ultimately applied. They're not elected. They're all appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the city council. And so for that reason, given the power that they hold and that some of these cases are adversarial cases where it's, maybe a staff member arguing against somebody from the community, a developer or a homeowner or something about what the law means in that particular case, the board is instructed by the state statute to operate as a quasi-judicial board. And for that reason, it's very important that the board knows how to operate in that way, what the proper procedures are, and that they keep an accurate record of what goes on during those hearings and during those meetings. As it stands right now, our current ordinance that authorizes the Board of Adjustment and prescribes some of their procedure is rather vague and ambiguous. And the city attorney has recommended that we amend that ordinance to make it more clear, to make the procedure more specific, and to make sure that there's something in there that makes it clearly known how the Board of Adjustments is supposed to be looking at these issues, so that it's clear to potentially a circuit court judge that the decision they made was not arbitrary or capricious. So we believe that's what this ordinance does. It does follow the MML recommended model ordinance for this type of thing. The P&Z Commission recommended approval of this bill, and staff does as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tyson? Something like this is going to protect the city and the...
Yeah, we've had this on the radar screen for several years, and just now bringing it forward that we needed to tighten this up and give the board some clear direction on what their duties were and how they would operate. And this model ordinance from MML gives that.
We haven't had any issues with anything in the past, or...
Nothing has come back to really
Yeah,
hurt us at all.
nothing
but-
that nothing that council thought was serious enough to appeal to circuit court.
Okay.
We've had a couple of decisions by the board that I think we felt
Board of
like
Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment, that we felt like probably didn't quite follow what they should have.
Okay.
But it was such a minor issue that the city administrator, myself, and discussing it with council, didn't think it was worth instituting an appeal to the circuit court over that particular issue. But hopefully by doing this, it'll be clear enough in most cases as to what their duties are and how their decision-making processes take place, and that we'll avoid that type of deal in the future.
Okay, and they did see, they seen this ordinance, you said that they approved it, correct? Or they,
No, the Board of Adjustments themselves did not approve. The Planning and Zoning Commission did, though the Board of Adjustments is very familiar with everything you see in there.
okay. Any questions for Garrett? Nobody? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashear?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinkenbeard?
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. A motion and a second for the second reading of bill number 15-21.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Chapter 405 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances by repealing Article 10, Landscaping and Open Space Regulations, and Article 11, Screening and Buffer Yard Requirements, and enacting a new Article 10 in lieu thereof.
A motion and a second for final approval of bill number 15-21.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Tice.
Thank you. The city's landscaping ordinance has existed for many years now. What it primarily does is it screens from view various elements of development and site improvements that may be detrimental to neighboring uses or developments that are of a dissimilar zoning district or a dissimilar character. So situations where you have residential uses up against commercial or potentially even an industrial use, or local commercial uses up against an industrial use, our zoning regulations require that a landscape screen be installed to provide a barrier between those uses. There's also landscaping requirements to provide screens for parking lots, in some cases provide screens from some less desirable side elements, visually speaking, like trash dumpsters and things of that nature. What this ordinance does is it reformats our landscaping regulations to hopefully make them a little bit more clear to someone, an architect or a developer that's going through our code and reading them and trying to figure out how can my design meet the city's code. So we're hopefully making it better for that reason. It also makes some substantive changes, though. We are applying some what staff believes are reasonable reductions in some of the plantings required for these buffer yard screens. These are the screens that go in between different zoning districts. Reducing those slightly just to make it a little bit more reasonable, a little bit more palatable for developers. The amendment will also require minimum amounts of green space for certain categories of zoning districts. For example, residential zoning districts, at least 30% green space on your site. Commercial, 20%, industrial, 10%. Just trying to maintain a minimum amount of green space and open space for these developments. And then it will also allow for some screening exceptions in limited circumstances, those circumstances being where you have a coordinated business park type of development where you have a mixture of commercial and industrial zones that in some other place in the city you would want to have that screen and that barrier between them, but within that coordinated business park where people are expecting to have that mixture, expecting to have neighbors that are commercial or potentially even industrial, that screen doesn't add as much value, doesn't provide the same benefit. So in those limited circumstances, this new ordinance would allow for some exceptions to installing those screens in buffer yards. Staff recommends approval of this bill, and Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended its approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. I did notice you don't have anything on here about outlawing sweet gum trees. Is that going to be in here somewhere?
No, I'm sorry.
No,
It didn't
okay.
even cross our mind.
Okay, well, I tried.
And there's,
Any questions for Mr. Tyson? Oh,
I don't want to stop the questions, but whenever council's ready, there is a proposed amendment. I think there's a memo from Ron that's been included. There were some errors contained in the original bill that was presented to you, just some typographical errors, and there was one zoning district was mistakenly omitted from one of the tables. The changes are highlighted in yellow there in your packet, so if a council member would please make a motion to make those amendments, it would make the ordinance work much better.
Want to read those into the record, Ron?
No, that's why I did it this way. I did a memo and I attached the proposed changes, and as Garrett said, they're highlighted in yellow, so they're just basically typographical or omissions that needed to be put back in there. And what I would propose is, as set out in the memo, that councilperson move to amend Bill 1521 by amending the bill to substitute the language highlighted in yellow in the proposed amended bill into the original bill. In other words, take everything that's in yellow and substitute it into the original bill by this motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion to amend carries. Now, any questions for Mr. Tyson? No questions for Mr. Tyson. Nothing? I need a motion second for final approval. A bill
You already done that?
for final approval?
Yep. Just need
Oh, roll call vote. Roll call vote, sorry.
Councilmember Klinkenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Brashear.
Aye.
Councilmember Harder.
Aye.
Councilmember Poole.
Aye.
On to new business. I need a motion to read Bill number 15-22, motion for the first read of Bill number 15-22.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of a program services contract with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
Mr. Brock.
Thanks, sir. In January of this year, the city received just under $7,000 from the state to update our fluoridation equipment. And as that program went through the development in the spring, the state determined that they had additional money. So they sent out a request for applications for a second round of grant funding for community fluoridation. This round of funding would be used to purchase fluoride additive. We submitted our application for that. We've been notified that we have the opportunity to obtain just over $4,900 for the purchase of approximately 1 year's worth of our fluoride additive. So this ordinance authorizes the execution of a similar services contract with the State of Missouri Department of Health to accept those grant funds.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Do you have any questions for Mr. Brock on this particular bill? No questions. Well, we do have a request for an emergency second read for this evening. So I'd like to have a motion and a second for the emergency second read of bill number 15-22.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Instant replay.
Does Brenda have to read it again?
No, well, no,
Yes.
she does.
Yes, she
You need
does.
need a motion and a second for the second reading.
We just
Is
did
that-
that.
Just did that.
No, you just did the amendment.
There's no
No.
amendment on that.
He did both.
To
Emergency
use
or
that.
Emergency.
Emergency
You just did
second
the
reading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now you
do
need
one
to do
for
the
the read, now we gotta do
second read.
motion for a
Motion
second read.
So I need a motion and a second for the second reading of bill number
Okay.
15-22.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Now, Ms. Brenda, you're on.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of a program services contract with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services.
Rewind.
Sure. I mentioned that
No.
these...
We need a motion for final
Final approval.
passage. Motion for final passage now, then the discussion.
Any motion for final passage of bill number 15-22?
Motion.
Now.
Now.
I mentioned before, we knew these funds were going to be available in the early spring. However, the state did not send us the contracts until after the first of the month. So the entire program has to be closed out by the end of September, and we're asking for emergency second read to allow the state time to sign their side of the contract, and then allow us time to get our bids, make the purchase, receive the materials, and then put together our grant closeout paperwork all by the end of September.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Any questions for Mr. Brock? Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Poole?
Aye.
Councilmember Harder?
Aye.
Councilmember Brashears?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Clinkenbeard?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. There is no other business, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.